Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are in the world today, I hope that you are doing great. I hope that life is pleasant for you. And most importantly, my friends, I hope that you are in good health. Once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. On this channel, we get to talk about those things that people know, that people have thought about, but don't often have the time to discuss. These, my friends, are the things we talk about here on the Common Sense channel. So once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. As I've always done, and for those of you that watch my videos, you know how I start. I always like to give like a little bit of gist before I even go into the topic. But for today, we just want to talk about so-called democratic institution. This is a phrase you hear all over the place. You hear them when there are crises. You hear them when someone is trying to make a point. You hear so-called democratic institution when someone has a narrative that has an agenda. You often hear that. I'm doing this video. This video is in connection to the video that I did on ECOWAS. But I'm going to go back and forth when I talk about this because democratic institution, so-called democratic institution, this particular phrase, right, can be used globally, you know. So here's the thing about democracy or democratic institution, which I think exists. I'm not going to lie. America is a typical example of how so-called democratic institution can work. But I can only say that for this country. But who knows? Maybe someday America will change. We're just looking, we're observing and seeing. Because me personally, I've always say there are no such thing as democracy, or there is no such thing as democracy. I always say that, and I look at it from a different point. I've made that case many times on my channel. I've made that case on many videos that democracy does not exist. So, but America has always been that beacon or that example that stands out in the world to show that this thing can work, you know. But yes, here's how I see democracy before I even talk about the institution of democracy. Democratic institutions are, in my view, promises to the peasants, you know, promises. Democratic institutions are nothing but mere promises to the peasant. Who are the peasant? The peasants are the poor people, the working class people, the downtrodden, the people who are not educated, or the people who are ignorant, the people who lack all understanding, those who are waiting for other people to lift them up. You understand? These are the people that democracy promise democratic institution. You understand? Why would the elite or the powerful promise the peasant population, the poor, or those people that I described as member of the peasant? Because in medieval days or during medieval time, there were the nobles, there were the clergy, the nobles, the lords. These were the people of high authority. And they were the peasant, the poor people. Some people call them bourgeoisies, the French word. So they are these people, you understand? So someone must have come up with the idea, say, in order for us to be protected in our power and in our throne, we have to promise. We have to promise these people something to, and the reason is it's very simple. People in power are often afraid of the people that are not in power. You may not know it, but they are. You understand? And people in high places too are often afraid of the peasant, the poor people, the downtrodden. You understand? Like in America now, and in most Western countries, democracy is just a promise. You understand? Like in Europe, it's a promise, but it doesn't mean nothing. The only reason is the democratic institution is promised to the peasant is because these people that are running these institutions, these so-called democratic institutions, which I'm going to point them out to you, they are afraid that someday these people are going to rise up against them. So in order for them to keep it going, they have to promise all these things, and we're going to talk about them. In this country, where my favorite rights of all of them, like for the right to freedom of speech and the right to pursue life, happiness, and all that. So those are good. The right to assemble, those are great, But my favorite of all of them is the right to bear arms. Not only bear arms now, but to own them. You're allowed to own and bear arms. So imagine in this country, the great United States, if you don't have that promise of democratic, so-called democratic institution, imagine all these people, 300 and plus, 60 plus million people, not all of them valuing that rights, but let's say statistically, out of the 360 people, 200 of them value the Second Amendment. Imagine, what do you think is going through the heads of the elite and the super elite that are running this institution, this so-called democratic institution? They are constantly, this is true now, take it from the common sense, these individuals are afraid of you. So in order for them to maintain their status, they must always keep that promise going. You understand? And because they are able to keep that promise and the so-called democratic institution, you are able to be relaxed and they are able to continue what they are doing. They are able to continue to remain in power. So let no one tell you the elites are not afraid of you. They are. And imagine, although America, the government is very powerful, but imagine in this country, if 200 plus millions of Americans go into the houses and pull out their guns, it's going to surpass the power of the government. You understand? So that's the reason why they must have this illusion going on. You understand? Now, in places like Africa, in the third world country, they don't understand because democracy was never, or the so-called democratic institution was never established for these third world countries. Never. And if you don't know, all these third world countries, they also have the elite. Elitism is everywhere. You understand? And just like in this country too, these third world countries, like places like Africa, for example, because it's hot now, and I think it's going to be hot in the coming years. 2026 is going to be a great year for Africa. And you will know by the time I finish this video. The elite in Africa, they are also petrified, just like the elite in this country too. It's the same thing. But there, they don't have the Second Amendment right that this country has. You understand? There, they only have this institution. And these institutions were never designed with the intention of doing anything for these people. Unlike the United States, this institution, they adhere to all the promises. I'm not going to say values or principle. I'm just going to say promises that they say they would do. So it's a huge difference. But in order for you to understand, is to see between the two democratic institution, the one in the Western world and the one in the third world countries, like Africa, let's say, South America or Southeast Asia, somewhere around the world where they're not really adhering to the promise, because this institution are nothing but promise. You understand? So the fear in these places are what makes the elite do what they have to do. They know that these people are gonna, once they get fed up, they're gonna rise up, and they're afraid of that. The elite are always afraid. You understand? So they're always trying to be at least 3 or 4 steps ahead of the population, or the peasants, or the poor, or the downtrodden, or the uneducated, or the ignorant. They're always trying to stay at least ahead of them. Like in this country, the government will do everything. When people don't have jobs, they know what that will create. So they're always trying to, create opportunity and things for people to just to keep people busy. But you have to see it to understand what's happening. Like in Africa now, this institution, democracy, was never meant for Africa. And that's why me and most other people that understand these things, we advocate that Africa, in order for them to free themselves, they will have to create their own system, And I don't know, with all the educated people, so-called educated people in Africa, they still can't come up with their own system. But again, that's another topic or discussion for another time. But because of these elites in Africa who are immensely incompetent, you understand, grossly incompetent. How can you be immensely incompetent, grossly incompetent, and you want to stay in power? You understand? They haven't learned from their colonizers. So whether it was England, France, I don't want to say their name, but just for discussion purpose, wherever the colonizers were, at least these people should learn from them how they're able to control, how they're able to run their democratic institutions. Because democratic institutions, if you look at their definition, which I'm going to go over, is they talk about elections and votings, so you must have election. So there are institutions that are specifically designed to focus on election. Now, these institutions are also responsible to ensure that each of the people of that country are able to vote, and their vote has to make some sense, right? Unlike America, the promise of this democratic institution actually somehow work. But we've seen in recent time, there's been some discrepancies and, people talking about looking into this system to kind of see what's going on with it. See, that's what I'm talking about when I said the promise that this country is able to keep. In the third world country, they don't care about keeping them. They just have this institution there. But this institution are not functioning in the interest of the people in this country. If something goes wrong with that institution, I just told you what the institution is. The board of election in this country, if there's something, Congress want to know what happened. And they'll do investigation, right, as to why this happened, that happened. Even if it takes years, they would investigate. That's how you make democratic institution works. So the people can believe that when they go to cast their vote, that they are not casting their vote in vain. So you will never have that problem happen here. And if it does happen here in this country, there's going to be a follow-up on that. There's going to be some sort of investigation. And if anyone was caught rigging or doing anything that was illegal as far as election is concerned, those people will be caught and prosecuted. What that does is allows you understand, for those of you who live in third world country, especially in Africa, now you see why this country is different. Now you see why all the Western countries are different, because whatever they promise the peasants, they make sure that even if it go a little bit, but it don't go overboard. You understand? Like in Africa, where they say the institution that regulates voting exists, but guess what? It's grossly incompetent, it's grossly corrupt. You understand? So now you talk about that, the system of voting, and you want people to believe that this system do work, is part of the democratic institution. You understand? That the people ought to believe it. But then when they cast their vote, it means nothing. You understand? So how can people believe that? So that's one institution that's very important in any so-called democratic institutions or country, whatever they're running there. So let's look at the branches of government in a democratic institutions, right? This is very important too. And this is the one that creates most of the problem too. The legislative branch in a democratic institution, the judiciary branch in a democratic institution, the executive branch in a democratic institution. These are very important, essential branches in a democratic institution or country that practice democracy. So if any of these branches are not working in congruent with each other, that system become irrelevant. So for instance, in most African countries, you hear that we have to protect democratic institution. We have to protect democratic institution. Guess what? In some of these countries, right, the executive branch is more powerful than the legislative and the judiciary. As a matter of fact, based on party lines, some of these institutions, for instance, the executive branch would buy them. The executive, just imagine a country wants to go to war. In the case of Nigeria, not even the opposition party stands up and say no. They just like evade another countries. This country, the great United States, that's why when we talk about America, we don't just say America, we say the great United States. You will not find no senator just signing like that. No. They will debate these things. That's why we have different thinking in the Congress. And that's what makes this country unique versus some of these people walking around. It's not a democracy, but it practices something that keeps this country for going 300 years now. It's still running because the people in this country, these people, maybe now it's changing, but you can't buy all of them. So the executive branch in these third world countries, they buy people in the legislative branch and in the judiciary branch. And if they don't buy them, they implant in these places, in this institution, member of the political party, member of the tribe, member of the clan, you know what, whoever. The reason why they're doing that is to consolidate power. You understand? So once they're able to consolidate power, then it's hard for you to have the institution that represent the masses. But in the meanwhile, they are going to stand there and say, it's democracy. We have to protect democratic institution. I think all of these people, honestly speaking, they need to be re-educated. All the African leaders, all the politicians in Africa needs to be re-educated. I think they need to go to Greece. I'm sorry, not Greek. They need to go to Greece if they still want to continue with democracy. Go to Greece and relearn how the Greece started this whole thing. You understand? But America always set this example. But none of these people try to understand how this country is running. With all these millions of people in this country, it's running smoothly. And the president is not. Have you ever seen Donald Trump in a military fatigue or attire? I mean, camouflage? No, he's not going to ever wear that. I don't know if he ever thinks about wearing it. But he never, even if he's dressed, if Donald Trump is addressing the military, he's not going to walk in there with a military uniform on. He always in his nice suit and tie, stuff like that. That's what makes this country different than other countries around across the globe. Because the leader of this country is not a military leader, but he's still the executive chief of staff for the army. You understand? And does it in his nice coat and suit. You see? So here's the thing. All these institutions in third world country, here's my thing. I think they need to stop using that term, democratic institution, because those institutions have already been bought. Now, here's the thing. There's one thing that they often leave out, and I'm going to include that in this video, and it's religion. I think religion is part of the democratic institution in any country. Whether you like it or not, it may not be there when you're talking about democratic institution because a shadow is hidden, but it's always present at every institution. It's always in every institution, in the democratic, so-called democratic institution. You understand? Because if the institution can be credible, if the institution can have accountability, if the institution can be transparent, if there's accountability, transparency, trustworthiness, then you can look at it as a citizen of that country and put your trust in it. But when you're talking about third world country, places like Africa, with all this bunch of, countries in there that shouldn't even be country in the first place, but they're still there. They all want power. So because they want power, they consolidate power by just making sure that all of these institutions that I listed are corruptible. But here's the worst one in the democratic, so-called democratic institution. I think it's the worst because what it does is, and this is the one that most of the leaders in these African countries that try to propagate these institutions as relevant, is the media. You understand? The media is one of their main thing. And I think if the media is actually doing their job, these people will never get away, because every move they make, the media will say stuff, we talk about it. Like in this country, I always like to use America because America is so unique in a way. I think it's because of the freedom of speech, and it's not just on paper in this country. You get it? Any of you watching my videos from Africa, so you can start to think. When America say you have the right to freedom of speech, it's not just vain paper. It's not just vain right. It's not empty right. It's guaranteed. You know what is guaranteed by? The blood of patriots. There are people that died before. The right to freedom of speech is guaranteed by their blood. We're talking about great many men and women. So nobody can trash it or disregard it without consequence because it's in the Constitution. And the people understand that. You understand? Unlike places like Africa and other part of the world where I'm not going to include the Western countries, because sometimes you see like riots in France, you would never see they kill someone there. But let riot happen in Africa, any part of Africa, if you didn't hear someone got shot or something. But over in this place in the Western world, where the promise of democratic institution is in full effect, when the people take to the street when they're protesting, sometimes some of these protests, riot get real violence. I've seen, especially in places like France, England, Germany, but you'll never hear someone get shot, killed. They don't do that because the elite are always afraid that every move they take can escalate into something and they won't be able to control. So they take it easy. Like in Africa now, the media, the one that's supposed to be the watchdog, some of them are highly paid by these dictator masquerading as democratic leader, you know. And sometimes I blame them, but sometimes I don't blame them because it's the people. But why would the people understand when the media that they have are brainwashing them? So you see the importance of the media in a so-called democratic institution. The media is also part of the institution of a democracy. So the media is supposed to be holding these people accountable as far as they're questioning, you know, are they free? Are they at liberty to ask the kind of question? Are they under pressure? Are they being paid? Are they corrupt? So these, you wouldn't find that here. You understand? So all those people, they're always going to be people in any institutions that want to do the right thing. But guess what? These people in these institutions in a third world country, the ones that are trying to do the right thing, guess what? They either fire them or they either get rid of them or they either malign them or do something to them so that it just fall in line. So when these elite in Africa now, they're elites everywhere, you understand, and they're afraid of you. So just know that they are afraid of you. And in order for them to consolidate power, they'll just pay everyone. They pay this, pay that, pay that. And not them that consolidating power. They're consolidating power because of interest of someone. You understand? There will never be a day in Africa when a politician can run for office without taking money from outside interests. If Africa ever get to that level, then you're going to start seeing institutions working in the interest of the people. But until then, there's always going to be that interest out there. You understand? So like another aspect again of this whole thing that sometimes when I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, Africa, wake up. It's the rule of law. That's one of the major democratic institutions in any so-called democracy, the rule of law. Who is supposed to enforce the rule of law? The court system, right? But if the court system is corrupt, say there's an election, you understand? This is the case of Africa now. There's been a couple of elections in Africa. And then guess what? The court system, because the election department that runs election and voting and everything also work alongside the court. You understand? So if there's a rigged election, who do you go to? And if you go to the court, can they be unbiased? Can they rule without impartiality? You understand? Like America have had that happen too between George Bush Jr. and Al Gore. And that was settled in the court. That cannot happen in Africa. And then no one killed no one. There was no war, nothing in this country. So I keep telling you, America has ups and downs. But throughout its history, it's always been able to find a solution to solve a problem. That's what makes this country unique. Any of these people who want to, I'm not going to say America doesn't practice democracy. But anyway, let me just hold on to that. But it's there. There's starting to see some cracks in it too. You understand? But America is going up and down, but still maintain. You understand? So it's a good example. But all these people out there that are talking about rule of laws, so now there's an election. We've seen in recent time where there's an election, the guy look and say, you know what, I'm not leaving. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stay. Okay, the constitution of all of these countries, they like to model Western democracy, which is okay. If you were colonized by this one, that one, hey, you want to follow in their footsteps, that's good for you. You're a little child, you're Pekin. I call them Pekin. You're not Pekin. You understand, eh? So, yeah, so if you want to follow in their footsteps, go ahead if you want to. But you got to be true to what you're saying you're doing. So here's the thing. If the Constitution of a country says a person can run for 2 terms, there's an election, most Africans are understanding. They'll go to vote. If the election was rigged, they'll be okay. The first time they'll say okay, like in the case of Ivory Coast. The second time, but the third time, then people start saying no. Because I'm against that too. And the reason why I'm against that is because you're not the only person in that country with the brains. There are other people there too that have the same right as you. So this case right here can be adjudicated in a court system that understand that each of the people and all of the people in that country have the same right to be leader of that country. It's not just this set of people that have special interests somewhere that pumps them with money to stay in power because of the kickbacks. You know what I mean? So yeah, so rule of law should work across the board for every citizens of that country. Not that this elite don't know that, but the elite always want to stay in power. So in Africa, they are open about it. And that's what you see happening right now in this institution that's supposed to serve in the interest of the people. Unlike Africa, America, they make sure these institutions are working. And if there are cracks in this institution, they'll investigate to know why it's happening or why it happened. And if anyone was found liable in that problem, they either put in prison or prosecuted. You will never, anyone watching this video from this country or in any Western countries, that doesn't happen. That's not the case for Africa. One man can say, I'll be there for like 3, 4, 5 years or 20 years. That's wrong. And guess what? The backers, they never say anything. United Nations don't say anything. The churches in this country, they don't say nothing. They just keep praying. Oh, we'll pray, and one day God is going to come from heaven and remove them from there, and you'll be free. Don't work like that. Doesn't work like that. This institution is set up for the people as a promise to them, the peasant. So you have to keep that promise. You understand? And that's what it's supposed to, and that's what's happening in Africa. So the wise Africans, the one that are paying attention, the one that want to participate in the development of the country, they are sitting back and looking and saying it's wrong. Now the military institution are also part of a democratic society too. Yeah, the military is also part. The military does not sit back, even though they're supposed to take command, and they are supposed to follow these commands without without questioning or without insubordination. But at the same time, they too are part of the society. They too are citizens. They too are voters. They too shares the same interest that the masses of the people share about their country and the direction in which the countries are going, or the country is going. You see? So sometimes they'll step in Is that a new thing? No, all the situation that's happening in Africa right now is not new. It's just that the people are starting to wake up, especially those countries that are sleeping. Places like Ghana, Nigeria, they had their own share of ups and downs in the 60s and 70s and 80s and up to the 90s. Places like Ivory Coast, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, most of these countries had their own thing going on, just to shape the direction in which the country was heading. So all these are not new. It's just that it's a different era, it's a different atmosphere, it's a different time. And people are saying, wait a minute, I saw the living condition of people in Ivory Coast much better than mine. Oh, I saw the living condition of people in Vietnam much better than mine. Oh, wait a minute, I'm living in Gabon, and I traveled to, and I saw on YouTube the living condition of people in Nigeria, a little bit okay than mine, or those in Western countries. I want some of that. You see? So the people are globally connected today than they were, say 50, 60 years ago. So if you're not trying to make this institution work as a promise to the people, then there's always going to be someone there's always going to be an uprising. So ECOWAS step up and say, we are going to protect democratic institution. When they say that, basically they're just protecting themselves from you because they're afraid of you. That's what is simple as that. They are afraid of you. They are not trying to make sure to strengthen the institution so it can work in your interests. If you notice, they're not even complaining about the people that are messing up the institution. How can one man say he's going to be there for 20 years? He's not the only one in that country that has a brain, that loves the country more than the other, but because he's a member of the elite class. And the elite, they are, my friend, very entitled. I've never seen an elite that don't feel entitled. They always feel entitled. This is a disease for them. Only if they can just look and see the plight of the poor. Even in the church, there are elites. In religion, all of them. All religion has elite, just like in government, in politics. There are these elites, and they will not concede to anyone because of entitlement. You understand? And if you look at ECOWAS, all that stuff they're doing right now in Africa, basically they're not even protected. It's not in the interest of the countries. It's just to protect the elite. You understand? And the elite will do whatever it takes to protect the elites. They're not protecting democracy, nor are they protecting the institutions, the so-called institution that are the bedrock for democracy. They're not protecting this institution, because if they are, they will look at the president that says that will do everything to consolidate his power, buy off everyone just to stay in power. And sometimes they even buy these people to the point that they'll go and amend their own constitution just to fit his desire or her desire. And then they're going to sit there and they're going to look and say, oh, we want to be like America. You can never be like this country, because there are great many men in this country. There are upright men in this country, my friend. That's why when we talk of America, not that we don't love Africa, but you are not trying to practice what you preach. You're not trying to emulate. If you're going to emulate any of your colonizer, do it just like how they do. Look, in England, the prime ministers, if he's not doing what he's supposed to do, the people rise up. He removed. The party has to find another person to come on and take its place. Because it's not about them. It should never be about a single person or his party or his political affiliation or his clan or his tribe. No, it should be about what's best for the country, the mass of people. When would that ever happen in Africa? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be next month. I don't think it's going to be next year. I don't even think it's going to be the year after. Because these people are not ready for unity. They're not ready for change. They are seeped in greed, power, entitlement, and all the other ills between them. But here's what I see gonna happen in the coming year. And I pray to the ancestors that this doesn't happen, but I know it's gonna happen. Because I'm a lover of history, I'm gonna say that. And I see history happening. Like if you pay attention to what's happening in the world, you will see what I'm gonna say. The war in Ukraine, I love the people of Ukraine, especially the innocents. And Ukraine, I just pray that peace return to Ukraine. And that's why I know the ancestors are going to guide Donald Trump and Mr. Putin so they can come together. I'm not going to say Europe, because Europe don't want peace. But these people can come together and do something to bring that country to a stability, peace. But here's the thing. I'm going to say this. If there's peace in Ukraine, Africa, especially West Africa, is going to be the next Ukraine. Take it from the Common Sense channel. Africa is going to be the next Ukraine, because you can see a correlation between the two. It's starting to form. It's going to be a proxy war. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen. But if that war ends, West Africa is next. So if you're in West Africa now, you need to wake up and start. Don't pray. Don't pray. Because prayer is not going to solve nothing. I want to say this again. The Almighty has nothing to do with the affairs of man. Take that from the Common Sense channel. The Almighty has nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with the affairs of men. So you can be dying in millions. No one is going to come from that sky to save you but yourself. So right now, don't be taking whatever is happening in Africa lightly. These people, they say they're creating a standby army. That standby army is not to protect the people of these countries. The standby army is to protect the elite. And the elite is them. I'm talking about the African elite. Everywhere in this world, you're going to find elite. Even in a village, there's going to be elite. Even in a town, there's going to be elite. Everywhere in this world, there are always elite. And what I don't like about elitism is people in that group or that class often feel entitled. So that because of they feel entitled, you find this in politics, you find this in religion, you find this in any segment of society where people feel like they're better than other people. But yeah, Africa needs to be careful, and I pray that war in Ukraine ends. But if that war ends, say tomorrow or day after tomorrow, Africa is the next battlefield. I'm telling you, especially West Africa. I can see it. It's already forming. They're just waiting for that war in Ukraine to end. Once that war in Ukraine ends, then the powers, they're gonna channel their attention to Africa. They're done with the Middle East and so-called Middle East. They're done with that. They're coming to Africa. And you know what they're going to be fighting for? Resource. It's always been the old trick. So yeah, I don't want to make my video too long, because sometimes when I sit and talk about these things, I see it. You can see it. Once you, that's what it says, right? Those who don't learn from history will never know the future. Yeah, you got to learn from history, because history always repeats itself. You know, so if you don't want to repeat history, then you have to do everything. You have to take all the preventative measure you have to take so that it don't happen, so that it does not repeat itself. You understand? So yeah, Africa right now, your eyes, when you go to sleep, keep one eye open. So at least you, if something is ever going to happen to you, you're going to know how you go down. But yeah, Africa is next. Yeah, next, especially West Africa. You're next. Yeah, all that resource you have, because now resource is going to be the main thing. Oil, the world is, maybe Africa is kind of like behind, not even a little bit, a lot. So where the world is ending, they haven't really seen it. Where the world is headed, Africa hasn't seen it yet in terms of technology. So the more technology advances, the more the need for natural resources become, the main issue or the main thing of the day. So in Africa, you have these things. Yeah, you need to start to watch like some of these movies, and see, like, what's the movie name, man? I can't remember the movie, but yeah, there are a couple of movies where Water's World. Yeah, Water's World is one of them too. That whole movie was like people fighting for resource in the whole thing. Yeah, Water's World. And Max, oh my God, Max something, man. Oh my God, Max. I can't remember, but anyway, the lead actor in is what's his name? Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson is one of the lead actor in there. I think the main actor in there. Yeah, I think it's Max Warrior or something like that. Yeah, Max Warrior. Yeah, so yeah, whenever you see things start to go that way, just know the resource. It's always been resource. And resource are money and industrialization. You understand? So yeah, Africa, be careful, especially, I'm not going to talk much about ECOWAS because ECOWAS is over. Yeah, your case is done. Like you just need to start to think about ways you can unite right now. Don't try to start a war, because people have already chosen the side where they want to be. Like some of these countries, and with time, in 2026, more and more African countries, especially those in West Africa, and I think all of Africa too, are going to start choosing sides where they want to be. Whether they want to be on the Western side with the West, or they want to be with Russia and the other people and their colleagues. Because right now, if you look at Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, it's the same as Russia, China, North Korea, and then the other people. So they've already created their own little group, So it's the same thing. So that's the correlation. I'm not going to go deep into it, but that's the correlation. The connection that almost like similarity between what's happening in Ukraine, and then the people on the other side, and then the West. So you see, like, there'll be America, England, France, and Germany, and then on the other side you see Russia, China, North Korea, and then the other, you know who they are now. So in West Africa now you see Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Ghana. I think Ghana is I don't know where Ghana is, but that dude is almost like a hypocrite, that Ghanaian president, because he's here and then he's there. So no one knows where he's at. But yeah, I would say Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, and then some of them, Benin, Togo. So these people, they already do their own alliances. Now on this side, now you're going to see the other alliances. They call themselves Confederation. There's 3 of them. So these 3 are almost like, the 3 that they're fighting in Ukraine, So yeah, so that's that same, you're going to see that same thing play in West Africa. You're going to see it. And then they have their backers too, like Russia, China, and they have their own backup too. those that are backing them up, like with logistics and everything else. You understand? So it's the same as like Ukraine, and then Ukraine has their own backer with all these things. So you're gonna see that same stuff playing in there. Yeah, it's a dangerous time. 2026, I don't know. I'm hopeful of 2026, but I think globally it's gonna be a different time. Africa is in a crossroad right now. I think that people just need to wake up, start thinking, and asking questions, and then think, ask question, and try to find a solution. Don't be sleeping. It's not time to sleep. Luther Vandross said, "There's no." Is it not Luther Vandross? What's his name? Yeah, is it Luther Vandross? No, not Luther Vandross. I just forgot his name, man. But he said it's no time for sleeping in bed. You got to wake up. He said, wake up, everybody. It's no time for you to be sleeping in bed. There's just so much happening in the world that you have to be awake, that you have to be alert, so that at least you know how things are going to happen. Because whatever happens is going to shape your history. And your history has so much to do with where you're going in life and wherever you're headed into the future. Because I think the future is always now. Because whatever happens now is going to determine what tomorrow will be. So as I've always say in my videos, the greatest thing that could ever happen to anyone is not the day you were born, the day you had your first child, the day you graduated from high school, college, whatever it is you're working on in life, my friends. The greatest thing that could ever happen to anyone is the day you discover yourself. Because from that day, my friends, everything will start to make sense to you. You will wake up, you will renew your mind, and you will be great, and you will understand all of these things that are hidden in the darkness. We must be the people of light. And then why is that? Because we can lead the rest that are still lingering or wallowing in darkness into the light. I want to thank all those people that watch my videos. I want to thank all those people that remain subscribed to my channel, including the newest one. I love you. I honor you. This is something that will also, because this is our world. This right here is our world. We don't have no other place other than here. We shouldn't allow no one group of people, a class of people, to dominate the world without even taking us into consideration. You understand? No matter what happened in this country, there's always going to be one or two people in Congress that are going to stand up for the truth and say, no, we will not allow this to happen, and would stand up and be vocal about how they think. And I think the American people already understand that, you know. And that's why I would say this country is a sleeping giant. You don't want to screw it up with America, man. Because there are people such as myself that understand one thing, the Second Amendment. You know, that right, no one can take that right from you. It was already put in the Constitution by the blood of patriots, man. Many of them that gave their life for that right. You know, all the other ones, yeah, I can understand. But that one, no one should touch. So I want to thank everyone. I want to honor you. And I hope that you have a pleasant day, you know, and I hope that all is well. Let's do whatever we can to prevent war. War is not good. Instability is not good. It does not promote creativity. It does not promote anything but dismay, despair, and grief. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.